And so, Ian, how are you feeling after all that?
Very disappointed, obviously, the way it's panned out. But I think you have to you take the draw and you move on. There's not much you can do about it when you get a decision like that. From me, in my opinion. But I think in the end, second half. Again, you look to the bench, there's not too much other than Erdegaard coming on, Martinelli. We just needed a little bit more firepower off the bench, maybe.
Yeah, there is one big talking point in that game, and it was the way that Brighton came back into the contest via the penalty spot. And that's because of this coming together between William Saliba and João Pedro. Glenn.
Well, I obviously disagree with Ian because I think it is a penalty. I think it's effectively a challenge. Saliba is just slightly late. Effectively, if it's on the floor and you get first to the ball and you make contact with the player, it's a penalty. And therefore, for me, that is a clear and obvious penalty.
You know what? I watched Kulusevski and Anthony Gordon today, and I'm thinking they've not given that as a pen, but they can give this as a pen. Where's the consistency? It's pathetic. Kulusevski's nearly broken his nose. He's just gone to try and head the ball here. It's like I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what, because I saw that one. It's not a pen, but this is. Come on, man! It's ridiculous. We've got the worst in Europe in respect of the decisions they make. The worst I've seen, these lot.
Well, let's try and get some clarity, shall we? Former Premier League referee Dermot Gallagher joins us now from the Match Centre. Always good to see you, Dermot.
Thank you.
So let's have a look at that. What is your reading of that coming together, collision, headbutt, whatever way you want to put it?
I'm in Glenn's camp, actually, Manish. I think he's unlucky. He goes to head the ball, there's no doubt about it. But if you see, the ball gets moved on there, he goes to try and head the ball, but he catches him on the head. This is a great angle. See, there's the ball moved away, then he comes in, catches him. I think once you do that, it's a foul for me. If that happens in a halfway circle, the referee's going to give a foul. So I think a penalty. Tough call for the referee. He took his time, he run it through his head, and I don't mind that. But I think he's got it right.
Yeah, and I suppose the reason we're debating this is because we very rarely see something like that happen, don't we?
We were actually discussing it during the match, and I can't ever remember that happening before. It's such an unusual incident. But you look at it, and it's very, very difficult when you see it in a cold light of day like that to say it's not a foul.
What about Kulusevski?
Yeah, so let's have a look then what happened earlier in the day in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Dejan Kulusevski here with Anthony Gordon, not with the head, but with the shoulder. Well, nothing was given here.
I think this is a penalty as well, Manish. I think it's a penalty anyhow, because I think of how he catches him. If you watch there, his shoulders up, he catches him in the face, he catches him in the nose. I mean, you see here, he's nowhere near the ball.
How can they watch this? How can they watch that, Derm, and not give that as a pen? But they can watch this one with Saliba and give it as a pen. If they gave that as a pen, then I would take this one, no problem. Yeah. But I'm no way am I taking that as a penalty if they're not giving Kulusevski's one. The Gordon's one. Yeah. I can't believe it. I can't believe what I've just seen.
And I think, Righty, that's why I'm sat here in front of the camera talking to you, isn't it? Because if they were both given as penalties, you go, fair enough. If they were both given not as penalties, say, fair enough. But when you compare them, without doubt, in my opinion, the Kulusevski is the worst of the two. I think that should be a penalty. The second one's a referee's on-field call, so that's why that's given.
Yeah, the contact is there and clear to see, isn't it?
I feel Kulusevski makes his body a little bit bigger just at the end there to make sure he doesn't get past. And for me, they're both stonewall penalties.
I think the clue here as well, Glenn, is the ball. If you watch the ball, where the ball is in relation to the challenge, he's so late. For me, it's got to be a penalty.
Yeah. Another flashpoint in the game at the Amex, Dermot, was when the penalty was being prepared to be taken. Jorginho, amongst the whole group of players on the edge of the 18-yard box. You will see it, I suppose, in the second angle. You can just see a kick out there with his right leg on the Brighton player. Nothing was spotted or given at the time. Is there a punishment to be warranted here?
Well, I think you've got to go through the nuts and bolts of this. Firstly, priority for the officials on the field is the penalty, is the goalkeeper moving, all that. Nobody really looks outside the penalty area for that. It gets picked up by the VAR. And then he's hamstrung to a certain extent, because you look at that and you think, it's petulant. I don't think it's a red card, and I don't think anybody would expect a red card for that. So therefore, he's got all or nothing. He doesn't think it's a red card. He can't recommend a yellow card. He can't recommend a public admonishment. So his hands are tied. So effectively, they've got away. But
So
what
VAR could only interfere if it was a straight red?
Absolutely.
But Derm, in the rules of the game, if you attempt to use or use excessive force against an opponent, and even if you don't make contact, then that's deemed to be a red card. Is that not the case there?
It's got to be deemed violent or an act of violence or brutality, Glenn. And hand on heart, I would never say that was a violent kick out. I think it's petulant. I think it's very, very unwise. But I didn't expect him to see a red card.
So, Derm, suppose he does that. He can't see where Veltman is. Suppose he catches him on his knee there. Then what?
Well, I think that
because he can't see where he is. It's not like he's like we saw the elbow the other day where he's just missed.
Pedro, as it happened.
Yeah. So with that, he can't see him. It's petulant. If he catches his knee, then it's violent. He can't see if he's going to catch the knee or not.
Yeah, but you can only go on what happens, righty. You know, you look at that.
It's the intention, though.
Yeah, but I still go back. That's petulant. I don't think it's violent, and I think we've got to be very careful. We don't get wrapped up in what happened a week ago.
But Derm, what about Pedro's one? That looks like it was petulant.
We can't get wrapped up in it. We all know, righty, that a week ago, if a red card had come out there, nobody would be arguing with it. It was, that was a sheer act of violence that went on unpunished.
OK. Dermot, thanks very much indeed. It's only taken you 4 days of 2025 to get your tin hat on. But thanks very much indeed.
Look at Dermot, his cool blue shirt. Look at him.
Cheers, Dermot, as always.
And yet, as you said, the results have been there for them over the last 12, 13 games. When you look at what Arsenal have got coming up now, and you mentioned this before the game, Steve, that the games are going to come thick and fast. It's not just necessarily about the number of games, it's about the difficulty levels of a lot of those games. With Newcastle coming up, Manchester United, who, yes, another team not firing anywhere near on all cylinders, but is still a tricky FA Cup tie. Then they've got a North London derby. Similar point with Tottenham, not necessarily firing on all cylinders, but it's a North London derby.
I think it's this time of year when you really find out the character and the personality of your squad and your team. And it's this period as well where you get through it and it's more industrial. It's not free-flowing. There may be the odd game where you do it, but it's more about grinding that result out, whether that's going to be a 1-0 win or a 2-1. I think Arsenal have done that sort of for the last 2 months. It feels like they've had to just sort of really grind teams down. They're not like what James said there before about sort of that free-flowing, fluid, like red arrows they were scoring at will in previous seasons. This season it just seems to be a little bit more harder for them. And that could be a real testing time from coming up now this next, six.
And you look at those fixtures, Steve, you normally go, OK, they're really good fixtures at home. And I remember we're looking at Chelsea's fixtures when they had a great run. You're thinking, well, Chelsea's title bid is going to be big now because the next 5 games. But all of a sudden, they look quite difficult games. They've got he's going to have to balance his squad, manage it. I don't know what sort of team he's going to play against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. Because right now, you're looking at it in terms of what you're setting yourself to win. That's obviously a huge chance for them. So you might want to play a slightly stronger team but you've got to manage the squad carefully.
You mentioned as well about the fact that they've had 2 days fewer rest in the build-up to this one, 2 days fewer to prepare for this one compared to Brighton. They actually had quite a gentle Christmas schedule, Arsenal. I mean, it wasn't too tough in terms of days between games. But recently, they have managed to put together a really good run of results. So do we need to be... I mean, Mikel Arteta has been saying it through the week. We're very quick to kind of make snap decisions on teams. Do we need to be a bit careful about putting this in context of what they've done over the past 12 games?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past 12 games. It's about the next stage now. So, and when we was playing, when you come out of January into February, you kind of got a gist of not where teams were going to be, but where you was going to be, whether you was going to be in a good sort of vein of form, personally, individually, how you're playing, or collectively as a team, where you're on the up and you're going to have a good real kick to the back end of the season. So this is vital for Arsenal. Liverpool have got to be looking at this thinking, we could blow this away come the end of January. If we just stick to our own guns, stick to what we know, we win our football games, it could be a big, healthy lead for Liverpool.
Arsenal have got to go on a Man City type of run to win the title. That's what they've got to do. They've got to look at what Manchester City have done over the last couple of years where they've hunted them down and chased them and made it so difficult. And every time that Man City would just get 3 points and just put that pressure on Arsenal. But are Arsenal capable of doing it?
Well, compared to what they did in the first half of the season, and the results that they had against the teams that they've got coming up. This is how it looks. Now, what we should say is there's a lot of tough away fixtures in that from the first half of the season for Arsenal. So they're going to be playing them at the Emirates. Look how many of those teams, can you see that from there? Look how many of those teams towards the top half of the table that Arsenal have managed to come away with points from. And then they've got to play them in the second half of the season. So you'd imagine they're going to be able to improve on that set of results there.
I've got to go to Liverpool, as well, which is obviously...
They've got to go to Liverpool and they've got to go to Forest. But then from Chelsea down to West Ham, they've got all of them bar Brighton to play at home.
But that's great, and I totally get they are good fixtures, but they've got to play better than what they are. Yeah. That's the actual fact, because you can look at it on paper and go, "Cool, these are lovely fixtures. We're at home. You've got to make it count." They're finding it very difficult. A couple of weeks ago, Everton at home, you're thinking that is an absolute banker for them. Bournemouth dispatched to them today. They've not been able to do it. They haven't been able to unlock teams like they normally or would expect them to do, and that's why they've got to find different ways, especially about Bukayo Saka.
And, of course, they've got to hope that there is a blip for Liverpool, starting with tomorrow's game at Anfield against Manchester United. Now, look, we keep asking whether Manchester United are going to click at some point under their new manager, Ruben Amorim, who's not that new, actually, anymore. But it's a big game coming up for Liverpool and Manchester United, for both of them for different reasons. Do we see a performance here from Manchester United coming?
You have to work on the basis that, yes, from Man United's point of view, because this is the game. This is the one where you can't hide. I played enough fixtures when I was a Liverpool player, when we were the underdog, and we'd somehow find a way of beating Manchester United, turn it around, the crowd. But this one, to go to Anfield and show character, which is something we don't associate with this Man United, I just don't see it right now. I don't see it, but you're going to have to work on the basis as you're a Liverpool setting up for that game.
Well, you look at the Manchester derby and think they've already beaten City so far this season at the Etihad. But that was a City that were in really poor form. Right now, the way Liverpool are defending, the way they're in control in midfield, they've got forwards that can just take the game away from you like that, in Gakpo and Salah. Whoever he plays up front, Diaz is obviously in a great moment. I just don't see anything else but a Liverpool win tomorrow. And I know that fixture's tough. It always is, the atmosphere, and it gives you a totally different energy. I can't see anything else, Steve, can you?
No, I'm exactly the same. And I think you've got to look at the basis of that you're asking these players to find a huge effort, big character, personality to go to Anfield when they are in free-flowing attack, winning games, football. So I remember Alex Ferguson used to say that he used to sign players based on could they perform away at Anfield. And I look at this Man United team at the minute, I'm looking at that going, how many of these players can really go to Anfield and pick up a result? There's not me on that team.
They're not going with Beckhams, Keanes, Scholes and Giggs, are they? That's the thing, and that was what Manchester United always had, great forwards, and they had characters. And to go to Anfield and win, you've got to have big characters.
If we're going to build a bit of jeopardy into this fixture, because you've both gone for a Liverpool win here, you may be wondering if the Liverpool players will look at Arsenal dropping points today, look at that gap at the top of the table, which at the moment is 5 points. Tomorrow they could extend it to 8 points and still have a game in hand at the end of that. Is it maybe complacency is probably the wrong word, comfort? Maybe is that the only thing that could knock them off their stride for tomorrow's match?
I think Liverpool not even. I think going into that game, and again, I've never experienced it at all. I've spoken to players that have been involved in that game, and everything outside of that pure fixture is irrelevant. Wherever teams are in the league, whether one's chasing, whether one's not, it's purely about them two teams. And from that's for the whole 90 minutes, and then whatever the repercussions are after, whether you've won, lost, dropped points, you deal with that after. But it's purely about getting the victory, getting the 3 points.
Right, so you're not letting me have any jeopardy in this game. I'm trying to build it, and it's not coming.
I don't know where they are now. They're on a coach, going to stay in a hotel. They won't be looking forward to this game. Whereas Liverpool, right now, will be chomping at a bit. It's like one more sleep. They can't wait to get their hands on Manchester United.